You are watching Issues at Hand, proudly brought to you by Protea Hotel Entebbe. And today, it's a Friday, and we are talking about the issue of corruption as the IGG names the most corrupt districts and agencies in Uganda. So we are going to have a very detailed discussion on corruption, how some of the districts are performing, how some of the agencies are performing, and then we're going to find out what are some of the ways to fight, one, what is corruption, and then two, what are some of the ways to fight corruption. And it's a vice that is prevalent in our society, so we really need to fight it with all hands on deck. My name is Bruno Edgard, and for today's discussion I'm joined by the lovely, the amazing Daphne Karungi.
Hello.
We are going to have a good discussion. Hello, welcome to Issues at Hand.
Thank you.
Our expert on corruption.
Thank you so much. And just for your information, my district is not corrupt.
Why did you have to start like? Why are you being defensive? But yes, let's get right into it now. Residents and stakeholders in Kampala, Wakiso District, and Mbale City lodged the highest number of alleged corruption cases with the Inspector of Government, according to the Ombudsman latest report covering the period from July to December 2021. Now releasing the biannual report yesterday, the Inspector General of Government, Ms. Betty Kamia, revealed the institution most complained about, that's during the reporting period, was the district administrations with 293 complaints, followed by police with 41 complaints. Now, both institutions topped in the IGG's preceding ranking for the period January to June 2021, showing no change in behavior of local governments, which are frontline service providers to ordinary citizens and the law enforcement agency. For instance, 293 complaints were filed against local government within 6 months to December 2021, slightly lower than the 312 cases lodged between January to June of the same year. Now, in both instances, the local governments topped the corruption list. Now, by contrast, complaints against force personnel who are mandated by the Constitution to keep law and order and fight crime rose to 41 in the latest report compared to 35 in the previous 6 months. Now, Inspector General of Police Martins Okotho-Chola was not available for comment, and Force spokesman Fred Enanga said he would only provide a formal rejoinder after receiving and reading a copy of the report. Now, the surprise guest on the corruption list at number 5 after Education Ministry and KCCA is Uganda Prison Services, and his spokesman Frank Baine said he was constrained to comment on a report he had not yet seen or read. And this is what he had to say: I will have to read the report and then respond. How do I respond to what I have not read? I don't know what is there, and I don't know how that's the Inspectorate of Government, came to that conclusion. So I need to have a look at it and understand what they mean. Otherwise, I would be speculating and not telling the truth. Now, Mr. Jameson Karimani, the spokesman of the judiciary, ranked at number 7, sandwiched between university / tertiary institutions and lands ministry, said, I need to first look at the report you are talking about because I don't want to take it from a third person. Until I have seen the report myself, I can't have a comment because I am just hearing it from the newspaper. That is, other unfavorably mentioned institutions include municipal and town councils as well as private organizations. Now, yesterday's report was titled Inspectorate of Government Biannual Performance Report to Parliament July to December 2021, chronicles Uganda's most and least corrupt districts, government ministries, departments, and agencies. Now, the IGG reported that it registered 761 new complaints, 455 at the head office in Kampala, that is, and 306 lodged at 16 regional offices between July to December 2021. Now, IGG Kamia yesterday formally handed over the findings to Speaker of Parliament Anita Among to inform House action in fighting graft. Now, Corruption remains widespread in Uganda according to back-to-back rankings by the IGG and other anti-graft bodies, despite a plethora of state agencies assembled to fight the vice. Now, prominent among these are Uganda Police Force and the Judiciary, both adversely named in the latest report, as well as Directorate of Public Prosecutions and State House Anti-Corruption Unit. Now, the institution's works are supposed to be reinforcing, but insiders say rivalry for the spotlight has led to infighting and backstabbing made worse by political interference, which combined a derailing official onslaught on thieves in government. Now, the IGG reported that it received 165 and 36 complaints in Kampala and Wakiso, respectively, Uganda's most urbanized and populated areas, between July to December 2021, compared to 20 in Buikwe, 18 in Mbale, and 17 in Masaka City. The report was not all gloom for all. For instance, Chibuku, Kazo, Otuke, Namutumba, Sembabule, Mitoma, Gomba, Napak, and Buvuma, with a single complaint in 6 months, were ranked the least corrupt.
Wow.
And yes, I know someone is looking at me because of one of those names, Kazo, but we shall get into that later. Others in this category are Manafa, Akabera Maido, Nebi, Omoro, Terego, and Ibanda. Now, the IGG named Uganda Registration Services Bureau, Uganda National Examinations Board, Uganda Investment Authority, Uganda High Commission, Kenya, and Uganda Air Cargo Corporation and State House amongst the least corrupt. Now up to 118 complainants elected to remain anonymous, and the Ombudsman reported saying that they were fearing, they decided to remain anonymous because of fear of a backlash. So those are some of the worst performing districts and agencies when it comes to corruption, and then those are some, including Kazo, which are the best performing.
So you have allowed. There is
I'm not yet allowed because Kazo, I don't know where Kazo is your village. But I know a certain Bunyagabu that will have something else to say about that.
Well, it is important for us to understand that corruption in Uganda is characterized by grand-scale theft of public funds and petty corruption involving public officials at all levels of society, as well as widespread political patronage systems. Well, elite corruption in Uganda is through patronage system, which has been escalated even by foreign aid. So we are seeing so many agencies right there that have been mentioned in corruption, and it is really absurd to see that number one in these agencies we have local government. And yes, recently there was an article about the Minister of State for Local Government, Honorable Victoria Rusoke Businje, who has undertaken to fight the abuse of office and misuse of funds, among other irregularities, pledging operations of local governments. We have seen so many projects that have been given down to local government and have been really mismanaged right there. Honorable Sinje was responding to the Public Accounts Local Government Committee report, which presented that its investigations of audit issues raised by the Auditor General's report for financial year 2020-2021 on 12 district local governments and 2 municipal councils, where the committee chairperson, Honorable Minister Martin Ojara Mapenduzi, said there were audit irregularities, pledging the local government authorities were accounting officers paying fully for services and projects that had not been completed. We had payments, misallocation of funds, corruption, and fraud all being risen there in local government. And it further noted that by the committee that some officers who caused financial loss to government were transferred to other district local governments instead of facing disciplinary action. That was really bad. People are got for being corrupt, and instead of being held accountable, they are transferred to another district. We can see right there why it is ranking highest.
And whilst we continue to discuss those that are ranking highest and ranking lowest, like a certain, anyway, I want to mention that, but it's good to see my district is not
Don't
on that
go
list.
there.
But it's important for us to understand in earnest what corruption actually is, because a lot of us use this word without really
Even knowing
understanding
what
what
it
it
is.
means.
Yes.
Now, we really do understand corruption and its forms, and I remember earlier on this week we had the ombudsman of the Inspectorate of Government who was taking us through some of the duties of the ombudsman, one of which is to ensure that those who are in public office are scrutinized when it comes to maladministration of public office. Now let's continue on this report when it comes to the districts and the agencies that are not performing well when it comes to corruption. Now, disaggregated by gender, 532 men filed corruption complaints, nearly six-fold more than women. Groups put in 14 complaints. Now, out of the complaints registered, 212 were sanctioned for investigation, 17 were referred to other institutions for appropriate handling, and 20 were rejected for various reasons, while 512 were pending decisions of the IGG. Now, due to low conviction rates, 3 in every 10 cases, IGG Kamia noted that the new management at the inspectorate has prioritized plea bargaining and out-of-court settlement. Now, she reported that they had recommended recovery of 1.5 billion pilfered funds, ordered forfeiture of assets worth 4.5 billion shillings, while money already recovered from the thieves grossed 2.3 billion shillings. Now, President Museveni, interestingly, to continue to fight corruption, launched the National Lifestyle Audit Campaign, and the Inspectorate of Government has started implementing the Lifestyle Audit. The Lifestyle Audit is a proactive measure to identify and prevent corruption, fraud, and other related offenses, and includes analysis of incomes versus expenditure, assets versus liabilities, and information declared versus financial from the public. But we shall get into that later on when we talk about ways of fighting corruption. But it's good to see that the IGG and the president are working hard to fight this problem. Then when it comes to some of the manifestations of corruption, especially from those who are in public offices, this is a good example. Now, the Inspectorate of Government has arrested at least 6 officials over fictitious payment of gratuities to former employees in Cairo district. Remember, one of the things that we have watched in those videos is falsification of documents or of payments is considered corruption. Now, the arrested include many chief administrative officers of some districts, and then a senior accountant at the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. And the accused, there's one, by the way, who is on the run, and the accused are charged with 2 counts of causing financial loss to the government of Uganda, contrary to Section 20, subsection 1 of the Anti-Corruption Act 2009 as amended. So we are seeing that there are a lot of complaints when it comes to corruption in the country, and there continues to be maladministration from people who hold public office.
Well, there have been so many questions as to why actually public sector has seen corruption. And one of the reasons that many have come out to give, and it has been proven, is that country size. Well, there are a variety of factors at the country level that have an impact on the way in which governments and services do function, and in turn influences the existence of the prevalent public sector corruption. And one of the reasons, like I said, is country size. Research shows that countries that are geographically large and have a low population density are more prone to corruption. If the country is big and yet the population is small, they say that it causes corruption. And so it took me to a question: how big is Uganda? Uganda is 241,559 square meters. Can you imagine? The population is 49,032,640. Equivalent to 0.59 of the world's total population.
So what does that say?
So the country is big. And so people have a lot to spend and very few people to spend on. So what do? Pocket.
But is that the case? Because I believe...
So they say, that's what research is saying.
Well, there's a lot to spend on.
So,
we have so many issues. There is starvation.
Yes.
There is crime. There is lack of service delivery.
Yes.
There are a lot of people who need... now, if you look at PDM, for example, the money that has been outlined for the parish development model is not enough for the parishes that are going to need to grow from subsistence farming to the market economy. So it's not
actually
enough for them.
it
So
is just stipulated for only 39%.
Exactly.
Only 39%.
So that money is, there is need, there is demand. The issue is the supply. Sometimes the supply is does not reach the main demand.
No,
so
you see what happens.
Well, I agree that may make some sense, but for our country, it's different. That the need is there, and the money is there to a certain extent, but it's just misused by many public officials and people who hold office.
I'm trying to look at it in a home setting. You have a very big home and just a few children, so you decide maybe let me spend little and hold back much. They don't need it, and then you do what they call enjaulo, like you're saying. And then another issue that they raised as one of the reasons that's why there is corruption is the country age. Well, newly independent countries or those that have recently transitioned from authoritarian regimes to democracies may face more corruption owing to, or for example, underdeveloped governance systems or rent-seeking opportunities created by privatization of state assets. What are they saying?
But sure, Uganda is 60 years old.
Yeah.
Okay, I know in terms of age, when it comes to countries, we are relatively very young because there are the likes of USA that's around 100 years plus old.
We go back to scrambled partition of Africa.
But 60 years really should be enough to have a system because when it comes to totalitarianism, that ended in the 1970s. And for all these years, there should be at least some movement and improvement when it comes to fighting and curtailing corruption. So,
I'm telling you.
I wouldn't say Uganda is young.
So what is our problem?
Point there.
What is our problem?
But they have a point there because like many countries, actually I agree to a certain extent because we are still we are still growing in terms of our democratic system.
Yes.
We are still growing in terms of democracy. There are things that are not yet properly in place in terms of our system of democracy. They need to be in place now. If that is the case, that but why is it that it should be the issue of corruption should be hand in hand with with the issue of leadership? And by leadership, I mean, because leadership, everything rises and falls with leadership. I agree with that. But shouldn't it be the case that isn't it a case of integrity in terms of who the leaders are? Because at the end of the day, even if yes, the country might have come from a regime of dictatorship and is growing into one of democracy. But if we have a leader who has taken over and is chartering that journey towards democracy, if that leader is of integrity, then we shall find that the leadership, the system under him is one of integrity. Shouldn't that be the case?
No, I think what they try to say when it comes to age is like a child when they're learning to walk and then they're taking baby steps and saying until there is a stability in how they run their systems. For example, earlier we were talking about UK. The way their system runs, that even when there is no leader, the systems are not stalled. You understand? If we can get to that place where systems are established and properly implemented and followed, you would see it coming down. So I understand when it comes to that. 60 years, yes, we have made 60 years, but I think we are still going forward, and there is a lot that is left to be desired when it comes to stability in every area of life.
There's a lot to be desired in districts like Kampala, Wakiso, Buikwe, Mbale, Masaka, Jinja, Lira, Mbarara, Arua, Hoima, Moyo, Kasese, Kalungu, Masindi, interestingly, Yumbe,
Yes.
Rukunjiri, Tororo, Bundi Wujo. Those are some of the top performing districts. There are others like Luengo, Mukono. And then they have something to learn from the likes of Kazo, the likes of Chibuku, the likes of Namutumba, Sembabule, Napak, Gomba, Nebi. Those are the
But they
districts
haven't ruled
that
out the corruption. It's just that it's low.
the complaints, because
the
if you look
percentage
at
that is
Kazo,
low.
if you look at Kazo has one complaint, and that is 0.1%.
But that's how it starts.
One complaint shows
That is how it starts.
It's not so bad. There is
Yes.
one rotten apple that can
That
be
may
tossed
spoil
by
the rest.
wayside. No, the rest might be protected. And then, of course, going back to some of the agencies that are not doing well, district administration. Now, this doesn't come as a shock. I'm not shocked that it has the highest number of complaints, because during the giving out of funds of parish
PDM.
development model, we have seen that some district administrators have got themselves a honeymoon.
I am
They're
telling
enjoying
you.
a life with public money, and we have seen a lot of misappropriation of funds by people who are in office when it comes to district administrators. So that is not a surprise.
And yet it's only about 293 local governments or so. So you find that when they say it's ranking high, really it is out there for everyone to see. Right now there is nothing we can hide. We have seen what PDM has done. Of course, we had Kitugum ranking #1 in misappropriation of funds, and so many other projects that haven't come through and yet have been taken through the local government. And then it goes to police. Recently, you know, police is supposed to be fighting corruption, and it is absurd that even among them, they haven't yet managed themselves. Recently, we saw a report on the funds that were supposed to be for UNRWA compensation for the land at Chivuli. Moreover, is the headquarters. Oh my goodness, it hasn't hit the account. So it leaves so many questions. Okay, if you are supposed to be fighting corruption, yet you're corrupt, what are we doing?
But you see, that is why there's a problem of service delivery in this country. The district administrators are the engines that supply this delivery, these services to the districts.
Yes.
So if the district administrators are the worst performers, then it shows a red flag. And now we can understand why a lot of districts are struggling with their health systems. A lot of districts are struggling with education. A lot of districts are struggling with the implementation when it comes to projects like PDM, Yoga, because the district administrators, some of them are not persons of integrity, and they are misusing the money or the office that has been given to them. And so it is a stark reminder to us, to every district administrator, that we need to pull up our socks indeed. Uganda Police, I think, for some people in some spaces, in many spaces, it's not shocking that they come second. Ministry of Education, interestingly, comes third. KCCA comes fourth. But the one that shocked many people, and that has been going under the radar, is Uganda Prison Services.
That's why I'm still trying to wrap my head around it.
This reminds me of a problem that is talked about, especially when it comes to the prison services in Uganda.
Yes.
Which is the corruption that is instituted by some of the wardens in the prisons. For instance, according to the law, if you're carrying out manual labor as a prisoner, you're supposed to be paid.
Yes,
an allowance.
It goes to your account.
But there are many stories about how those wardens actually are keeping that allowance for themselves. So they and not only do they use. So the inmates are supposed to be used for prison work. So that manual labor is for the prison. But
they're taken out to work on other people's farms.
Other people's projects.
Yes.
And those wardens are the ones who get that money, and then you find that their rights have been abused as those who have been imprisoned. So it is it's an eye-opener to us to maybe be more keen when it comes to Uganda prison services.
Well, I won't go there, but where I will go is Uganda's resources, because one of the reasons actually that is put forward for why there is corruption in the public sector is the resource scarce. Well, the public sector monopoly over the distribution and allocation of natural resources rights allows economic opportunities to be exploited for corrupt purposes. The website for Natural Resource Governance Institute stresses that given highly concentrated and highly profitable nature, the oil, gas, and mining industries can generate a kind of political and private incentives that favor rent-seeking and institutional or state capture. Indeed, the data showed that many resource-rich countries suffer from poor governance and systemic corruption. Now Uganda is very, very rich. Recently we got our oil. Yes, we have our oil. And of course, recently there was a discovery of graphite in northern Uganda, and there is lots of minerals that have been discovered in different places. We know that mining is one of the sectors that is doing well here in Uganda. And yes, they are saying because of the resource scarce, if you have a lot, somehow it brings an appetite for those in power.
So let me get this straight. Because of the scarcity, when a huge chunk of money comes in, let's say as a district administrator, because that's a huge chunk of money, you'll be tempted to misappropriate the money.
Well, I think it's because Uganda has been known to have these resources, but we haven't fully understood how to exploit the resources. So yes, we have the resources, but we're not liquid. That is one thing that I have understood. How does that tie now to corruption? Yeah, like they're saying it brings an appetite. Now you see, when I said we have our oil,
so you mean excitement that we have discovered graphite now? There are some.
I'll need some money so that I can get my hands on that, so that I can be able to.
Okay.
I don't want to say much about that.
But at the end of the day, some of those reasons, yes, they make sense.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, we kind of match.
At the end of the day, doesn't it come to the actual character of a person?
It does.
Because a lot of people say money is evil, but that's not
why
the case.
We all evil?
Money is not evil. Money just exposes what is already in your heart.
You know,
if you're a person who is if you're not a person of integrity, money will show that.
No,
if you're not a good
do you know
steward,
what the Bible
says?
The Bible says that the love for money,
Exactly.
the love for money is the root cause of all evil.
Yes.
Not money.
Exactly.
Money per se, because money answers all things.
Yes.
If you call it and you're evil, you know how to call it, it shall come. But the love of it is what causes evil. That is why people become selfish, because they think they don't have enough. And by the way, that is a mentality where even those that have think they don't have.
Yes.
They will look for ways to squander even what the other that have little do have. Another reason was political instability. This is something I want us to think about, really, because political instability is associated with low corruption. Political stability is associated with low corruption levels, whereas probability of corruption is higher in politically unstable environments. Lack of stability in transitions to a newly elected government is particularly associated with public sector corruption. Well, when you look at us, are we politically stable or unstable? Because they're saying when you look at places that politically are stable, there are low levels of corruption. Why? Because when they are changing power, and then, of course, you know, there is looting and all that. So you find that people take advantage of the situation. We saw what happened during the expulsion of the Asians, people taking up other people's properties and all.
It can be very complicated indeed. But we shall continue with this conversation, and we are going to discover now that we know the problem, we are going to find out the ways of fighting corruption in this country. One of the ways that is being instituted by President Museveni and the Inspectorate of Government is what they call the lifestyle audit. Some of you have lived lifestyles that according to your jobs or the offices you hold, you're not supposed to be living. So we want to know, where do you get that money from? So President Museveni launched the National Lifestyle Audit Campaign, and the Inspectorate of Government has started implementing the lifestyle audit. And the lifestyle audit is a proactive measure to identify and prevent corruption, fraud, and other related offenses, and includes analysis of incomes versus expenditure, assets versus liabilities, and information declared versus financial information declared from the public. And that's what the IGG noted in yesterday's report to Parliament. And it's a very interesting the conversations that are coming in. Unfortunately, the constitution limits you to the public sector, and yet the money is taken to the private sector. The question is, who will determine the costs and hold the private sector accountable? That is why we need a constitutional amendment to that effect to broaden the mandate further. And this was according to Miss Betty Kamya. And the reservation about the lifestyle audit, which is Miss Kamya's spearhead in the anti-graft war, was first echoed by President Museveni, who asked her to go slow on the plan. Remember what we said about lying down like an envelope? The IGG said her administration prefers plea bargaining because litigation is costly and protracted, and the corrupt are syndicated, helping each other conceal or erase incriminating evidence. Yet conviction is not guaranteed after the exhausting court process. While the option of prosecution is good, sometimes it takes so long, and sometimes it isn't a guarantee that you will win the case. You you lose it. You could lose it on technicalities. So that's according to IGG, Miss Betty Kamya. So a lifestyle audit is one of the ways of curtailing this problem of corruption, expenditures versus income, and then assets versus liabilities, information declared versus financial information from the public. And then secondly, she has raised a problem in terms of the fight against corruption, which is prosecution for those who have been found guilty of maladministration. And that is the case. That's one of the biggest problems when it comes to fighting corruption. It is too expensive and too complicated to try a case of corruption. At the end of the day, we spend a lot more money as Ugandans because the IGG uses government money. And so we spend a lot of money trying to put someone behind bars. And if the person goes behind bars, yes, you have kept that official has been sanctioned, but the money that was stolen has not been recovered.
Of course not.
And so we have lost, and we have actually expended extra money in ensuring that person
even
is brought
to keep
to
you
book.
there.
But secondly, and which is the worst thing, is that you expend all this money to carry out the investigations and the prosecution, and then this person is found innocent because of technicalities. And so that's one of the issues that we find, and that's why the system there, I don't know about plea bargaining, because plea bargaining also, and that's one of the issues that we've been having about these officials, district administrators who have been misusing
the
PDM money. That what many of the police people in police that are doing in these districts and are doing to these administrators is that they are arresting them, and they are actually asking them to refund that money, because at the end of the day, that money still needs to be used.
What is important,
and that's what
the
is
recovery.
Important. That yes, they are arrested, we have arrested you, but you must refund that money. But when it comes to a plea bargaining deal, plea bargaining means the official who is being suspected can say, okay, I plead guilty, I carried out this maladministration. However, in that plea bargaining deal, because it's a deal that let's say the DPP, the Director of Public Prosecutions, will have to hold with this official, the official can say, in the deal, I will not be liable to refund any money. I accept imprisonment. So that's now the issue of plea bargaining. That it's actually.
I think it should be left out of this.
Exactly, a
It
lot
should be
of
left out.
corrupt officials are not really going to receive. And in fact, plea bargaining, its nature means that if you are supposed to get imprisonment for 25 years because you have served
Pleaded
court's
guilty.
time and you've pleaded guilty, you'll instead get a minimum sentence like 10 years.
But that's
So
unfair.
How is that going to help cartel? Actually, it's going to help people feel more comfortable because they know they can get away with a lighter sentence.
That is true. When the deputy speaker was responding to the findings of the local government district officials that mismanaged funds and were transferred to other districts, he came out to say that it's not the way to go. You cannot punish a misbehaving accounting officer by transferring them to districts with bigger budgets and funds. Well, the Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Thomas Tayebwa, responded to the findings, saying that government needs to devise punitive measures of dealing with officers who cause the country financial loss. The Deputy Speaker proposed that the accounting officers who engage in corruption should be investigated by the Inspector General of Government instead of police, because IGG is best suited for that. Well, like I had said earlier, that if we use the police and yet the police is also ranked among the corrupt agencies, then we are not going to get what we want. And yes, the Deputy Speaker is saying let's use the IGG. We also have another legislator, Minister Abusinje, that came out to say that we need to deal with issues of bureaucracies in the judicial system. They take someone maybe to court over corruption, and then the bureaucracy, you have to go through this, you have to go through that, wasting a lot of time and resources, like you were saying. And so it also discourages the stakeholders involved, and of course we lose even more money, and sometimes which is not recovered. Even the money that has been swindled is not recovered. And yeah, it's very, very important. She also came out to say that we are all supposed to work together. Let's work together with all officials, not thinking that this is only for the top people. Play your part, whistleblow if you can, or even restrain yourself if you can.
And when it comes to the lifestyle audit, what do you think about it? Do you think, because that, again, there's a challenge to that, because a lot of things need to be put in place for that to happen. So is it that there will be monitoring people's finances, expenditures, incomes? Is it that they find out, in your account, we say you have 500 million, and yet, where has this 500 million come from, and yet you earn 3 million as a district administrator? So there are a lot of questions that need to be answered about
then
that
privacy also, I do not know, unless the officials are going to sign and accept, give transparency forms allowing the government to access their accounts. And I do not know about the top government officials who may not be really happy with it, having to open their lives out there. Even if it were you wouldn't want someone monitoring your account. But because of the level where we have come, I think it's very, very important. We have known many officials who on book receive little money and yet are able to do so many things. I remember there were instances where officials were called to explain where they got the funds to build the arcades on very beautiful homes, and yet the monies they are paid very meager. That's why actually one of them came out to say that even their salaries need to be revised so that they do not embezzle funds, so they have enough to take home. Because you are going to trust someone with 500 million, but you are paying them 1 million or 3 million. What do you expect? For sure.
Why are you causing people to be tempted?
Yes.
And talking about temptation, Kaliro district is under fire when it comes to corruption. Now, the Auditor General in the report under review stated that Kaliro District local government registered a number of anomalies during the review of the district pension and salary payrolls. These are some of the forms in which corruption manifests, especially in many districts when it comes to maladministration. And remember, district administration is at the top of the list when it comes to worst performing in corruption. In institutions when it comes to corruptions. Now, these included failure to submit wage estimates to Minister of Public Service, inability to utilize wage funds of 400 million shillings, underpayment of salaries to staff worth 24.4 million shillings, and underpayment of 44.2 million to pensioners, and payment of salaries worth 2.3 million to 5 staff who are no longer in service. So we have continue to have ghost pensioners, ghost circles.
And now let me interest you with something. Minister Usinje said that she discovered recently that in Chiruhura, the chief administrative officer paid a contractor in full 1.7 billion. What is interesting about it? The contractor died 2 weeks later in a motor accident. The work will never be done, but it was paid in full. Are they going to demand from the dead? They won't. So you see, there is a lot that is still ongoing out there. Money is going and unaccounted for. And then also she came out to talk about the people that are due for payment for pension, and it's not been given. She said that this is supposed to be handled at local government level, but we have so many people moving from villages coming to public service saying they haven't been paid. So you see, there's a lot going on. Even the legislators are not happy about it.
And the legislators also have their own challenges in terms of fighting against corruption. In fact,
oh my God.
Oh well, interestingly, Parliament is not on this. Parliament of Uganda is here with 6 complaints and 0.8%. The office of the Prime Minister. By the way, remember there was a report saying the office of the Prime Minister was at the head, but here it shows differently because it seems like they are not doing so badly. Yeah, the office of the Prime Minister, 4 complaints, 0.5%. Not bad. They are doing well.
There's a time they topped the list.
Yes, they were topping the list actually earlier on this year. Then we have the likes of Electoral Commission, the Electricity Regulatory Authority, Judicial Service Commission, Law Development Center. Wow. And NSSF has 4 complaints, 0.5%. And those are some of the worst performing institutions. Yes. And Ministry of Justice, 4 complaints, 0.5%. Banks and financial institutions, 5 complaints, 0.7%. Minister of Finance, 9 complaints, 1.2%. So there's a lot. But interestingly, among the top 10 private organizations with 14 complaints at 1.8%. So it's not just, by the way, and I remember the Ombudsman talking about it, it's not just public institutions, but private institutions as well suffer the problem of corruption. So we need to work on that. Those of us who are in private organizations to ensure that corruption is no longer a problem. Then one NIRA has 11 complaints, but I think there might have to be more complaints because I
some
think
don't complain.
The spaces I know there are more than 11 complaints, but NIRA also is amongst the top 10. So that's the situation when it comes to the worst performing districts in corruption and the worst performing institutions. But at the end of the day, I hope that government can institute those systems that will curtail the growth of corruption in this country. And it needs to, remember our discussion on vision bearing, it needs to come from our leadership. President Museveni for so many years has been talking about fighting corruption, and he needs to be strong on it. The government needs to be strong on it so that services can be delivered to the people and so that our country and our economy can grow. Thank you for joining us on Issues at Hand today. Thank you, Daphne, for being our guest today and for diving deep in the issues in the water of corruption and discussing this issue of corruption. We continue to have issues at hand. We shall return on Monday with more interesting conversations. For now, have a lovely weekend and God richly bless you.